Hello, everybody. Welcome to your Thought Leadership Thursday by BAKERpedia. My name is Mark Florka. I'm BAKERpedia's Baked in Science podcast host, and this is your Thought Leadership Thursday, sponsored today by Brabender and Anton Paar. We have with us today Helga Geschwind, who is the Market Development Manager at Anton Paar USA, and Sal Iaquez, who is the Key Account Manager for CW Brabender Instruments. Welcome.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Excellent. So, Helga, can you give us a little bit of a background on Anton Paar to kind of help us start to put this whole puzzle together?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Yes, Anton Paar USA has been part of this acquisition of Brabender the past year. And we are very happy to have this new product line as part of our portfolio. And as we all know, this is a very broad market that Anton Paar is not very familiar with, because Anton Paar has been in the beverage market, petroleum, chemical, many other industries, but the flour and dough, it's actually pretty new for us. So we are happy to have Brabender now in our portfolio, so we can have more, access to other fields that are pretty new to us.
So you mentioned in there the acquisition of Brabender. Which one of you would like to take that one?
I can start if you don't mind. Okay, so basically from my standpoint, I started with Brabender in the late 80s, and I put in prior on 34 years, and then there was a period where I became their exclusive agent. And after the Anton Paar acquisition, which was about a year or so ago, I think it was August of 2023, I decided it was in my best interest and everyone's best interest to come back to CW Brabender to just be part of the transition. And I think from my standpoint, just looking at the product portfolio, and Brabender is looked upon in a way, we have a lot of standard devices, and a lot of times people don't look beyond the applications for those standard devices. I recall that there was a time when I was involved in testing mozzarella cheese on a farinograph, believe it or not, Mark. And ultimately what we were doing is we were measuring the rheological properties of mozzarella cheese during the aging process. You would never think of doing that, but I think that what the acquisition will offer moving forward is an entire product portfolio that would be more enhanced regarding the unconventional methods for the farinograph. So I think this is definitely a good partnership.
Excellent. Now, Helga, do you have some updates beyond what Sal has shared with us to kind of fill us in on some of the things that have changed, and then I want to get to some comments and questions that have come to mind as we've been talking here.
Yeah, absolutely. So adding to Sal's comments, so not just the broad portfolio that we have for our customers, but it's also a big structure that we can also offer. So with the acquisition, we are getting bigger. So it's not that we are just using the same structure that we used to have. So we have incorporated some of the CWB employees into the Anton Paar structure, and also we are hiring new people. So we actually have an army of sales reps, service engineers, application specialists. So with the acquisition, what we are trying to offer to our customers is more support in sales and service and applications. Also, we are building a new laboratory here in Nashville, Virginia, where
Excellent.
I'm sitting. Very nice with not just the food stuff that we do here, but also the chemicals portion of the business. So we are trying to make it more solid. And also from Anton Paar's perspective, it's an expansion. But also from a Brabender standpoint, it's like a consolidating the current presence in the market. So we want to really, we know there's a leadership here, but we want to become like stronger to support, all our customers and move forward, growing the market. So I think adding to that is not just the instrument, but the people. And so Sal is with us here too. So he's bringing a tremendous amount of value to the community and the the business in general, to the Anton Paar team with all his knowledge. So it's really fantastic to work together right now.
Absolutely, that's great. No, and this kind of leads us into why this is such a good fit, and some things that come to mind is, as Sal mentioned, things about testing mozzarella cheese on a farinograph. I think that when I hear you're building a new lab, and not only to do flour milling and dough tests, but also to look at chemicals and things. And in my previous incarnation, I worked at ADM at the research facility, and one of the things that was so great there was this cross-pollination that happens with the technologies and things, where one of the things that kind of weird, like Al had, is I got involved in, as I was able to work with the rheologist and convinced her to run Pido on an oscillating rheometer. And it was really interesting for both of us, because it helped me understand a lot of how this instrument works and what the information it provided. And it was a new application that they learned beyond just testing fluid gels and things like that. So it's the same thing. We can learn to share each other's instruments for the benefit
Yes.
of both groups, right? And so I guess that brings us to, Sal, tell us a little bit of what you see, how this is a good fit for both Brabender and Anton Par customers.
Okay, so as you know, or you may not know, we published a Farinograph handbook in, I believe it was 2022. Or, I'm sorry, 2023, or around that period of time. And it's that, of course, the Farinograph handbook has been published multiple times, but the last edition of the Farinograph handbook, specifically, I was reviewing it a few days ago. We did add a chapter in there. And basically what it is a chapter on unconventional applications. It doesn't get enough notice. Even when I wrote one of the prefaces for that handbook, I talked about it, and I said, these devices should be used for other different applications. So in the respect for the Farinograph handbook, there is a whole chapter on it, but I don't think that people look beyond the standard AACC 5421, 5422. And you coming from the milling industry, that that's the case. But from the miller standpoint, because ultimately we don't want to, we also want to focus on the standard instrument, which is the communication between the miller and the baker. But to that point, you also want to investigate other applications, especially on the baking side. One particular example that comes to mind is I've been traveling with Helga throughout the country most part of this year, and we were in a meeting and in the upper Midwestern states, and one of the conversations came from, of course, we started with the flour and dough because the main purpose of the meeting was the Farinograph. But the conversation evolved into different applications, which is possible now after the acquisition. Prior to the acquisition, it was more difficult because customers or users would only see Brabender in a one-dimensional way. I think that there's opportunities. It's just a matter of marketing correctly. And with the new acquisition now, I think this would open up a lot of doors. And not only from the side of the company, from the supplier, but also from the customer standpoint, it will offer a lot newer solutions versus just the grain science world. Because there's different segments of the food industry. It's just not grain science. Now it opens up a lot of doors.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can remember a long time ago, I convinced our wet chemist to run something on the Farinograph, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it was something like a batter or something like that. And the deal I had to make was, as long as I cleaned it, he would run it for me, because it made a huge mess, right? So, but But Helga, when I was at IBA and introduced to Anton Paar as part of Brabender there were some other instruments that they had on display as
Mhm.
well. And you can also bring that to the fold as another way of looking at some of the properties. And tell us a little bit about some of those things.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a big and let's say a very strong rheology team that it's working on powder rheology. So the flour
Mhm.
was already evaluated, and we have rheometers to evaluate the flow properties and compaction and things like that. We also have solid density. So we have tap density for the flour and also particle characterization. So particle size and particle shape is really a wonderful tool. And we have run some tests here in the lab. So we have all the toys in this lab. And it really makes a lot of sense to combine all of this. So we can see how a calibration flour will behave very repeatedly in a phoronograph, because we know that the particle size is really a very nice distribution. They are all homogeneous, and we can correlate why a calibration flour is a calibration flour, because the particle size are all the same size. So really, it's a great combination and a great way of putting like the whole story together, so it makes more sense for everyone. So that's where we are exploring more right now for these type of applications.
That is amazing. When the one that really caught my ear just now is the compaction.
Oh,
Because I remember we had so much difficulty years ago, and that is in the baking industry, where artisan bakers, when they dust things with flour, like dusting the bench to work on the bench primarily, they take a handful of flour and they just kind of throw it, right? And so that it flies into the air and dusts. And the problem we were having was with all-purpose flour, that we would keep getting these pearls or lumps of flour all the time, and we couldn't figure out how this was happening, what it was coming from. The moisture in the flour was fine and everything,
yes,
and the compaction factor is definitely something that can help analyze situations like that for the flour miller, to understand how the particle size, not just the moisture, is affecting that,
yes,
and that they can get the miller to adjust the roll stands or whatever to provide less compaction. And that would,
yes.
that would be phenomenal. As that just from my little old memory here, my little brain, right? Um, and so that speaks to some of the benefits, and that sense. Are there any other benefits that we should really point out for both Brabender and Anton Par customers that they can expect from these changes?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's so Anton Part in the US, our country is so big. So we have divided the country in 4 regions and we have one office in each of the regions. So in there, we have a whole service team, sales teams, applications. So with that, we can provide to our customers, more rapid answers when they come to us. So instead of the West waiting to the Eastern Coast, time, it's just very difficult. So with that, we're closer to them. So we have more resources and we can get there faster. And that way, it's kind of we are more flexible in that sense. So I think that's a huge benefit, because instead of having only one office in New Jersey, we are distributed across the country, which makes more, which is easier the access to our people and to our customers. So we keep that communication open. So having a more fluent communication with customers and helping them faster, I think it makes a big difference.
Absolutely. No, I mean, the time zone differences is makes a huge difference in that way. And that sense. And then also, of course, physically the differences makes
Yeah,
definitely a
absolutely.
big difference, right? That's excellent. Is there anything else on the instrumentation that we want to talk about and point out and bring to people's attention? Sal, you got anything there?
Yeah, I just one thing that came to my mind, and again, it kind of lines up. It aligns with the idea of the a more extensive product portfolio, and to look at Brabender as an instrument company, as a brand of Anton Par. A few years back, you may have been there. It was one of these cereals and grains conferences, an AACC meeting. I did something a little different that kind of caught someone's eye, and I think it kind of lines up with what we're referring to now. So what I did, Mark, is I put an extruder, a 3/4 inch extruder, and I attached it onto a farinagraph. As ridiculous as that may sound, everyone that walked by the Brabender booth stopped and questioned it, and they said, "Why would you do that?" And my answer was, because I wanted you to stop and ask me the question. And then by doing that, it opened up a conversation apart from the standard evaluation of the farinagraph. So obviously, at that time, the only product portfolio that we could use to expand beyond the three-phase system, for example, was extrusion. But now with the acquisition of Anton Paar with Brabender, you're going to attack, or rather capture, many different applications, not just the flour and dough. And matter of fact, I mentioned earlier that we had a meeting in the upper Midwestern states. And when I mentioned that it evolved into different discussions, it wasn't the discussion about the farinagraph used unconventionally. It was an entire discussion about dairy, because apparently Anton Paar is very big in that. So,
Yep.
We could offer more solutions ultimately. That's the message, I think.
Yeah, if you allow me, Mark, one more comment
Absolutely.
on instrumentation. So we also have instrumentation for food safety. So we have microwaves for digestion of the flour, so it can be analyzed for heavy metals. So every time we get into one application, we find many other ways of helping our customers with more
That's
applications,
fantastic.
of course, solutions
Yeah.
that we've got. But that's also it's an important one. Absolutely.
Oh, for sure. That is absolutely, that's essential, right? I mean, it's one of those things, you don't know what you don't know until, you find out and
You find
explore,
out,
right?
yeah.
And that is phenomenal, right? This has been really informational. Before we wrap things up here, do you have a website that we can send people to get information about Brabender and Anton Paar?
Well, the landing page is the antonpar.com. Everything is
Perfect.
related to that one. We are continuously updating that, so every people can subscribe and can get notifications about our webinars. So actually, yesterday we had a webinar with Sal for our flour and dough technologies, and
Oh, cool.
there's some
Yeah.
other coming about the food industry. So we just started with a series of webinars for the food industry in general. So we have divided into the different segments. So we have the dairy, we will have chocolate, sweets, we'll have extrusion, feed animals. So a bunch of stuff you can find all in the website. So also we are having workshops coming, so people can come over and actually have hands-on on the instruments. So we think that's very
Nice.
fun. So we will everything is in the antonpar.com.
Excellent. Yeah.
If I may just add one more thing, Mark.
Sure.
So Helga mentioned the regional. So I think that's critical. That's important, because our previous product portfolio everything was out of New Jersey, and of course we got support out of Germany. So now
Yep.
everything is regional, which is very important. But more importantly is for the Anton Paar USA group, everything is out of Ashland. So that's where Helga is, and of course she provides the more holistic support. So she'll always be there. And I should also mention that this particular year, immediately after the acquisition, Helga and I have traveled to many of the wheat quality councils that you've been involved in as well. So we're making every effort to keep this as seamless as possible. And I support, of course, Helga supports all of the locations, and I'm always there to support them. So when it comes to the workshops, when it comes to anything like that, this is going to be as seamless as possible. Customers should not experience any hiccups during this acquisition.
That's perfect. No, that's a great way to introduce this partnership now through the ownership, and that that you're there complementing each other, rather than, well, but I can get you in touch with someone who can. And so that is a really great way to introduce everything. Plus, you can introduce someone who can help them when you are at that stage of things as well, right? And so just to reiterate, it's www, and it's Anton, Anton, and then Paar, Paar. So AntonPaar.com.
It is Anton-Paar.com.
Anton-Par. Okay, good. Don't forget the dash, the hyphen,
Yeah, please.
minus sign, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, excellent. Right. Well, thank you very much. This has been
Thank you,
really
Mark.
informative.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you for your leadership in the industry and helping to bring these technologies and ideas to the forefront and help us as bakers to solve our problems and invent new things and come up with new innovations.
Hope to see you at the conferences, Mark.
Excellent.
Yes.
This has been your Thought Leadership Thursday, sponsored by Brabender, a brand of Anton Paar. My name is Mark Flurka, BAKERpedia's Baked in Science podcast host. Have a wonderful Thursday. Okay.